Before the first sunrise ever warmed the horizon, and before the first breath of wind ever stirred across the surface of the deep, the presence of God moved with a quiet and immeasurable authority over a world not yet shaped, holding within His eternal will the beginnings of light, land, life, and the story of humanity. A beginning so intentional and so filled with purpose that every moment of our lives still echoes the power of that first divine word, spoken into the silence. Darkness covered the face of the waters, a vast and unbroken stillness where nothing yet lived and nothing yet moved. And into that silence, God spoke light into existence, a brilliance that cut through the deep with a purity that separated day from night and marked the first boundary in creation. Light did not emerge slowly or struggle to find its place. It appeared at the command of the Creator, revealing a world waiting to be shaped. On the second day, God formed the expanse, separating the waters below from the waters above, establishing the heavens as a space of order and intention. On the third day, the waters gathered into seas and dry land appeared, rising under the authority of the One who called them forth. The earth was clothed with vegetation, each plant and tree bearing seeds according to its kind, establishing rhythms of growth and provision long before humanity would ever walk the soil. These early moments of creation reveal a God who brings order out of emptiness and purpose out of silence. And if this opening movement stirs something within you, let your reflection become part of this journey by sharing what the beginning of creation awakens in your heart. As the third day settled into its quiet completion, the earth stood ready for the next movement of divine intention. And God spoke again, calling forth lights in the heavens to govern the rhythms of day and night. The greater light was appointed to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, while the stars were set in place with a precision that would guide seasons, years, and the unfolding patterns of life. These lights were not merely celestial ornaments, but markers of order, reminders that God designed a world where time itself would serve His purposes. On the fifth day, God filled the seas with living creatures, from the smallest darting fish to the great sea creatures that moved with power through the depths. And He filled the skies with birds, whose wings beat against the air in patterns that reflected His creativity. Each creature was made according to its kind, each blessed and commanded to multiply, filling the world with movement and sound. These unfolding days reveal a God who delights in life, who fills the world with abundance, and who prepares creation with care before placing humanity within it. And as the story moves toward the creation of land animals and the forming of humanity, the narrative begins to open a doorway into the deeper layers of meaning that speak directly into our lives today, inviting us to see not only what God made, but what He intended for us from the very beginning. The opening movements of creation reveal more than the forming of light, land, and life. They reveal the heart of a God who brings order where there was none, and purpose where there was emptiness, and this becomes a mirror for the inner landscapes we walk through today. The ancient world surrounding Israel told stories of beginnings shaped by conflict and chaos. But Genesis presents a God who creates through calm authority, speaking life into existence with intention rather than struggle. This contrast is not only theological, speaks directly into the human experience, reminding us that the God who shaped the universe does not need chaos to accomplish His will. He brings clarity where confusion once ruled, and He brings structure where everything felt formless. When we look at our own lives, we often see places that feel like the deep waters of Genesis, unformed, uncertain, or overshadowed by darkness. Yet the same God who hovered over the waters hovers over the unshaped places within us. He does not rush, nor does He abandon. He moves with purpose, preparing us for what He will speak next. The creation story becomes a reminder that God begins His work long before we see the results. And if this truth resonates with you, let your voice join the journey by sharing how God has brought order into your life. As the fifth day faded into evening and morning, creation stood on the edge of its most profound moment. For the sixth day would bring forth the creatures of the land and the arrival of humanity, the pinnacle of God's creative work, with a command that resonated across the forming landscapes. God called the earth to bring forth living creatures according to their kinds. And the land responded with an explosion of life. Herds moved across open plains, small creatures darted through the underbrush, and great beasts roamed with strength and purpose, each bearing the imprint of divine craftsmanship. Yet creation was not complete, for God then formed humanity in His image, shaping the first man from the dust and breathing into him the breath of life. Humanity was not an afterthought, but the intentional centerpiece of creation, made to reflect God's character, creativity, and relational nature. This moment reveals something profound about our identity. We were created with purpose, dignity, and the capacity for relationship with the Creator Himself. And as this truth settles into your heart, let your reflection become part of this unfolding journey by sharing what the creation of humanity reveals about your own sense of purpose. The creation of land, animals, and humanity on the sixth day opens a doorway into the deeper layers of what it means to live with purpose, identity, and responsibility in a world shaped by the hands of God. The biblical account does not present humanity as an accident of nature or the product of slow, impersonal forces, but as beings intentionally formed, breathed into, and placed within creation with a calling that reflects the heart of the Creator. When God shaped Adam from the dust and breathed life into him, He established a pattern that speaks directly into our lives today. We are not defined by the raw material of our circumstances, but by the breath of God that gives us identity, dignity, and meaning. The world around us often tries to reduce human worth to achievement, appearance, or productivity. Yet the creation story reminds us that our value was established before we ever acted, spoken, or accomplished anything. We were created in the image of God, designed to reflect His character, creativity, and relational nature. This truth becomes a foundation for how we see ourselves and how we navigate the pressures of modern life. When we forget our identity, we drift. When we remember it, we rise. And if this truth strengthens your heart, let your reflection become part of this journey by sharing how the creation story shapes your understanding of who you are. As the sixth day reached its final movement, creation stood in perfect harmony under the blessing of its Maker, and humanity found itself placed within a world crafted with intention, beauty, and purpose. Adam and Eve walked in a garden planted by God, surrounded by landscapes that reflected His creativity and filled with life that responded to His command. They were entrusted with stewardship, not domination, called to cultivate, protect, and nurture the world around them. This calling reveals something essential about the human experience. We were created not only to receive from God, but to participate in His work, to shape the world in ways that reflect His goodness. The rhythms of creation were designed to flow through the rhythms of human life, inviting us into partnership with the One who formed us. Yet, even in this perfect world, the responsibility given to humanity required intention, attention, and obedience. The creation story becomes a reminder that our lives flourish when we align ourselves with the order God established from the beginning. And as this truth settles into your heart, let your voice join the journey by sharing how the beauty of God's completed creation inspires you to live with greater purpose. The creation of humanity in the image of God stands as the defining truth that shapes how we understand ourselves, our relationships, and our purpose in the world. For this identity was not given to a select few or reserved for the spiritually elite, but bestowed upon every person from the very beginning. In the ancient world, only kings were described as bearing the image of a deity. Yet Genesis extends this dignity to all humanity, declaring that every person carries a reflection of the Creator's character, creativity, and relational nature. This truth becomes the foundation for how we navigate the complexities of life, reminding us that our worth is not earned but given, not fragile but anchored in the One who formed us. When we forget this identity, we begin to measure ourselves by the shifting standards of culture, success, or comparison. But when we remember it, we stand on a foundation that cannot be shaken. The creation story invites us to see ourselves not as accidents of nature, but as intentional beings crafted with purpose. It's called to reflect God's goodness in the way we live, speak, and love. It also invites us to see others through the same lens, recognizing that every person we encounter carries the imprint of the Creator, deserving of dignity, compassion, and grace. This perspective transforms how we approach conflict, how we extend forgiveness, and how we build relationships. For when we see the image of God in others, we begin to treat them with the honor that God Himself placed upon them. And as this truth settles into your heart, it becomes a reminder that your life is not small, random, or insignificant, but part of a story that began when God spoke the world into existence. A story that continues every time you choose to live in a way that reflects the one who made you. Creation begins with the voice of God calling light out of darkness and order out of emptiness. And as we trace the story from the forming of the heavens to the shaping of humanity, we are invited to see our own lives through the same lens of purpose and intention. The God who crafted the world with care is the same God who shapes the hidden places within us, guiding us toward the life He designed us to live. If this journey through the beginning has stirred something within you, let your reflection become part of the conversation by sharing how the creation story strengthens your faith and deepens your understanding of the God who made you.